outside information that you need to have. Now we're going to run through the documents. Right now with document A, you have a map. Okay, what is this map showing you?
The territories being...
Okay, the territories that changed. Before 1754, France had a lot of territory. After the French and Indian War, France has little territory. The way in which you would use this document is to help your explanation of how basically how the relationship changed and why it changed. France was a threat in 1754. After the French and Indian War, France is no longer a threat, so the colonists feel like they don't need the British. They feel like they don't need the big brother watching over them. Whereas the British view is, now that we've gotten rid of the French, now we can really start, enforcing our laws, enforcing our regulations on the colonists. And that's one of the fundamental changes, is the British basically feel like it's time to crack down. They've had too much independence. The colonists feel like, wow, now we really don't need Britain. We can expand, we can grow, we can thrive. And so that's a fundamental change between the two. So you're probably going to use document A with philosophical. Okay? Now, what other main point could you use it with? To kind of prove something relating to economics, like debt. What does Britain have to do now that it's assumed France's territory? Colonize it, which means you're going to need soldiers for protection. You're going to have to defend it, so that's going to cost money. In document B, you've got a letter from an Indian chief of the Iroquois to basically representatives from Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. The other thing is, with documents, when you quote it, you need to put like Chief Canastago said, and that's a pretty basic form of that, but you can't just like quote and then just insert it without any references or background. If it's an article, say the name of the article that it came from, like in a Massachusetts soldier's diary. Something like that that shows like where you got the information. I mean, that's what you're going to have to do when you write research papers. So, document B, we know our lands are now become more valuable. The white people think we do not know their value, but we are sensible that land is everlasting. And few goods we receive for it are soon worn out on God. We are not well used with respect to land still sold by us. Your people daily settle on these lands and spoil our hunting. We must insist on you removing them, as you know, but they have no right to settle. Now, you don't have time to take this entire quote. But if you're going to take a couple words out of this, or maybe a sentence, which one might you pick? Okay, we must insist on you removing them, as they have no right to settle. That's probably the part that I would pick as well. I think that's good. Now, here's the question. Where are you going to use document B? How are you going to use it to support your point? Well, it's probably more likely going to go with the Indians not wanting the settlers on their land. So are you thinking like it's going to go with the British not wanting the colonists to expand? Okay, yes, then you'd be accurate in that. This is going to tie into what piece of outside information? Right. And if you look in it, it's in 1742. Okay, so it's even highlighting the problems before the French and Indian War is even over. So document B, the way you're going to use it is you're going to connect it to Pontiac's Rebellion. You can talk about how even before the French and Indian War, the Native American population was concerned with the expansion of the colonists onto their territories. And then after the French and Indian War, the colonists were ready to move into the Ohio River Valley. They're ready to move into Kentucky. And the British had to make a political decision that they were not going to allow that to happen. Because they had already learned from Pontiac's Rebellion, the Indians were not going to tolerate colonization of their lands. So the British tried to keep them happy. So document B, you can probably put with political. Okay, it's going to fit into the main point about the Proclamation of 1763. It's going to fit in with that Pontiac's Rebellion. You're going to use it to show how there's a political difference. The colonists are seeking expansion. The British are seeking basically to promote peace. I mean, they don't want hostilities. They don't want war. I mean, you could put it in with philosophical differences, but it's more political. So document B. I mean, make sure that Chief Costanzo, comma, we must insist. That's how you're going to do it. I mean, you got to put said in there, but document C. So we know document B is political. Document C, George Washington to one of the assistants to Edward Braddock. Okay? I'm going to let you read through this, and you're going to try to pick out which part you think is the best. Okay, which one you might, what words or sentence you might choose to support your point or position. Revealing in document C, what part would you use?
I must be ingenious enough to profess their no. I have a laudable desire and must serve my king and country. I'm ingenious to confess that I have little bias, self-considerations.
Well, think back to what Washington really wanted.
I wish to earnestly attain some knowledge of the military profession.
Okay, you're probably going to take part, you're probably not going to take all of it, but it's that last sentence that you're going to cut parts out about how the colonists want to be like the British. Some of the colonists really do want to be British subjects. They want to be British citizens. There's a real desire to get along with the establishment and get ahead. So some of the colonists want to basically learn how to get into British society. They want to be part of it. Whereas other ones aren't as concerned about that. Washington was one of those ones who really did want to be part of Britain. In the beginning, and his opinion's totally going to change. So if we know that document C is kind of showing like a colonial view, like how they want to be part before the French and Indian War, they want to be part of Britain, they want to work for Britain, they want to work with them, they want to get along with them, where are you going to use document C? Philosophical, good. You're going to use it in philosophical. Okay? Because what is showing you, and this is where you're going to have to tie it in, what is showing you is before the French and Indian War. Okay? The attitude of some colonists was that of, admiration. They wanted to get along with England. They wanted to be part of England. And then there's a shift during the French and Indian War, and that's the point you have to make. There's a shift from wanting to get along, from admiring Britain, to basically distrusting and disliking Britain and its policies. And that's one of the things that you're going to have to really nail home. Document D, Massachusetts Soldier's Diary. Okay, I'm going to cheat because of time and skip to the part where I know it is. Though we be Englishmen born, we are debarred, denied Englishman's liberty. Therefore, we now see what it is to be under martial law, and to be with the British regulars, who are but little better than slaves to their officers. And when I get out of their power, I shall take care of how I get in again. The other thing with quotes is you can split them up, and you can use them more than once. You can take part up here, do the same thing. Because document D, who's writing it?
Massachusetts soldier.
Massachusetts soldier. Notice the date.
1759.
1759. It's a couple years into the French and Indian War. Washington's document was much earlier. Okay? So now it's showing you, what this is showing you is there's a change. How does this Massachusetts soldier look at the British?
Doesn't really like it.
Huh?
Not really pleased with how
Not really pleased with how things are going. What else does he observe about how the British treat people?
us like slaves.
Yes, their own people they treat like slaves. Okay? The British are so mean to their own soldiers and their own citizens that they're treating them like slaves. And the colonist here, the Massachusetts guy, is pointing that out and saying basically, I'm going to make sure that I don't let them get their hooks into me. I don't want them to run my life the way they're running these other people. So if you know that, where's document D going to go? Philosophical. Document D is going to go with philosophical. So when you start, you might think that it might be hard to make an argument for philosophical change. You might think you don't have enough outside evidence because political and economic are so strong. But what you'll find is that if you look through the documents, you'll get keys. You'll get information that's really going to help you make your point. A sermon by Reverend Thomas Barnard. This one is going to go with philosophical 2. It's talking about protection, things like that. I mean, document E, this might be one of the documents you don't use. Or you could use if you feel like you need stuff for philosophical, but we're not going to spend much time on it because document F and then document G are the bigger ones that you should use. So document F, British Orders in Council, 1763. Okay, scan through that really quickly, see what you think is the most important part. What words or sentence might you use from that to help prove your point, and where do you think it's going to go?
Find that the revenue arising therefore is very small and inconsiderable.
Good, exactly. Okay, the present state of the duties of customs imposed on your Majesty's subjects in America and the West Indies. We find that the revenue arising therefore is small and inconsiderable. That's going to be the first part you probably take. Okay? Now, where's document F going to go?
Economic.
Economic. It's got to go in economic. If you don't use document F for economic, you're in a lot of trouble. Because it's really going to help you set up why there's a change between the colonies and Britain. Because now they're not making enough money. And they've just won this war and they've got a huge debt. They've got to pay it off. And that's the thing. Then you take the second part of this quote. Okay? You can split up the documents. And is not yet sufficient to defray a fourth part of the expense necessary for collecting it. Okay? That's the other key point. It is not yet sufficient to defray a fourth part of the expense necessary for collecting it. They can't make enough money to pay for the cost of collecting the debt. Okay? So they've got to find a way to make money. And the military basically requires a lot of revenue to support it. So you could take 3 quotes out of that. Document F, as far as a document, is a gold mine because it's really going to help you set up your part on economics and why Britain needs to pass these acts, why Britain needs to pass the Sugar Act, the Stamp Act, those different ones. And it's from the British Orders in Council. So you're going to, instead of using a person's name, you're going to kind of talk about how the British Orders in Council, it's a government function. Even the government is acknowledging in 1763 they can't pay for stuff. B. Benjamin Franklin, in a letter to John Hughes in Pennsylvania, Ben Franklin is talking about the Stamp Act. So, in one part with economics, in your main point, you're going to discuss how the British needed to collect that money, that revenue. You're going to use that document F to support that position. But now you're going to counter it with another one. And you're going to talk about the colonists. Okay? And why the colonists are so angry about how the economics have changed. And you might use document G to do that, because what is Franklin? If you look at that, what might you pull out about that Franklin's using that relates to economics in document G? The Stamp Act. How the colonists felt about the Stamp Act. So you're going to set it up by talking about the Stamp Act, by giving some background on it. Then you're going to throw in document G and talk about how the colonists feel about it. You know, how Franklin says, we want to get it repealed. Your undertaking may make you unpopular for a time. I mean, the colonists do not like the Stamp Act, and that's what Franklin's telling them in a polite way. So document G, where's it going to go?
Economic.
It's going to go in economics. Document H, a newspaper. Kind of like a front page. Basically showing how they feel about the Stamp Act. Okay, this one's really easy because it's a cartoon. I mean, skull, crossbones, shovels. This is the place to affix the stamp. The times are dreadful, doleful, dismal,
Dollarless.
dolorous.
Dolores and dollar.
I mean, you're going to go through that and kind of prove your point about how they don't really like this. So where's document H going to go?
Economic.
Yeah, economic. So you probably have one document for political, but you've got a lot of outside information to go with that political main point. You've got a lot to go with economic. You've got a lot to go with philosophical. So, in setting it up, you've got your 3 main points. They gave that to you, and then you got the documents organized. Today during class, when I give you the handout about outside information, you know, make sure you take that into consideration when you start planning on how you're gonna write your deed